Sir.
All right. All right. Welcome back to Superior Synergy Games. I am Superior Synergy, and I'm once again joined by Purple Meeseeks here.
Hello, everyone, once again.
Good to see you all again. And so we are going to go over the weekly tournament that happened last night, April 1st, for the Mishi Mondays that we do our weekly event. I just want to bring
I,
up that this was a best of two event, so this was not a best of three. So we were testing out that new format. So you might see the records are a little bit different than what a lot of people are used to. So it'll be a little bit different.
yep. Also, let us know in the comments if you like it or dislike it. So we're trying to get as much feedback as possible.
Yep, we just want to run what people like the most, and so definitely let us know so we can plan for future events.
For sure.
So let's dig right in right here, and as you can see, we've got the back-to-back champ. Elias went and did it again. Came in at 4-0 and 1, so technically not losing any matches.
Yeah. Maybe goes to show that it mattered if it was a best of two or best of three format. He still took it. So
So
you know.
yeah, well, congrats to them, and let's take a look at their list and see how much it may have changed from previous week. So looks like they're still on that lantern steel song kind of deck.
Yeah.
The first thing I see that's different than last week is there are two Benjas now, not just the one Benja.
Yep. He added the Benja. He definitely listened to our recommendations.
Mm-hmm. Oh, plus I'm sure playing a lot on the ladder, you start to see those items everywhere, so you know you got to deal with them. So I do know this was a late addition to him last week, so cool to see that addition because I'm sure that proved useful against these items that are out there.
Yeah, for sure. Another thing I noticed was that he doesn't have the Hades anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because last week he had two Hades, I think, and I don't see him anymore.
But trim down on those uninkables. I mean, the only uninkable character here is Chernobog, right?
The one, I think so. Well, I think that he has like songs.
Yeah, but in
I don't, but like character wise, yeah, it's the only uninkable.
yeah, so pretty nice there. Obviously, I got the nice queen package here, and the four of here Cinderella and Ariel. So this just is a very solid list. I don't really know what the standard is for Rapunzel. Two seems to be. Is that standard? I really don't know.
I think he was running two last week as well. So, I mean, it keeps working for him. So,
Mm-hmm.
it may be the standard now.
Mm-hmm. And I think the three of here on the bigger drops, the Cinderella and Tink, is just perfect. I really like those at the three ofs.
For sure. Yep, those are really good for
Mm-hmm.
especially for your like bigger ones. 6, 7 is, I think that's good.
Mm-hmm. And then obviously has four of both the shift packages. I mean, the options that this deck has to open up a different, like you can open up games so differently. You can drop that Cinderella and come out slinging spells, or you can just go out on a shift package there.
Yeah, for sure. You can definitely go different directions. You're not stuck, or you're not forced to like have a specific combo. You can just kind of go whatever the whatever the cards give you, whatever the deck gives you.
Definitely. So let's start digging down here and seeing what these songs are that they ended up running. So obviously the three lanterns, I believe that's pretty standard and what I think what they were on last week.
Yeah, that's the same. I think he added another bare necessities, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure
Because I
that
think it was at three.
I'm sure that proved to be helpful. Being able to take out
Yeah.
so many things, whether it's a location, item, or song, like you got plenty of options.
Yeah, for sure. I always do that mistake where like I play against yellow and I completely forget that
Mm-hmm.
they're running bare necessities. So like I'll keep like a location that I'm gonna drop turn 4, and I
Mm-hmm.
just completely forget about it. So yeah, it's definitely good.
Yep, definitely. And then kind of that three of most of the songs there, so that it's a nice just versatility. All of these are just good for different circumstances and being able to find them. I'm sure when you want, I'm sure he was finding the right songs at the right time.
Yeah, for sure. The two grab your swords as always. I think it's most people have been just sticking to grab your swords
Mm-hmm.
lately.
Yep, just always got to
So.
respect that aggro that can be out there.
And then you pair it up with the what, three tinkies, four tinkies.
Three
So
tinkies, so yeah,
yeah,
plenty of options to
definitely.
wipe boards there.
For sure.
So to me, this is a very well-rounded list. I think it's pretty refined. So if you are looking for a list that's running the lanterns and kind of a steel song list, you should definitely check this list out. This is really great quantities of all the cards.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't think there's many changes I would do to this deck. I think it's pretty complete.
Mm-hmm. Personally, I think if there's one thing I don't love the Stitch, but I'm sure the Stitch probably came in clutch a lot. So I maybe would only have two of this one, but I can definitely see the reason for three. So that's my
For
only
sure.
thing that I'd be like. But I also don't love the card, so that's my own personal vendetta against this card.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, they're mostly ink at the beginning, but
Hmm.
once you're in that late game, they can always come in clutch, draw you a couple extra cards.
Definitely, and that stat line is just gnarly.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So all right, well, anything else you got on this list before we move on?
No, I think it's pretty good. Like I said, pretty complete deck list. He already won 2 times with it, so just
Yep.
goes to show.
And congrats here. So can you do it again next week? Stay tuned and find out.
The three-peat, we'll have to see.
So all right, let's move into second place. We've got Keith Feynman, who went 4-1. So
Hmm.
let's go take a look and see what this list is all about. So this list is definitely a Mufasa list, but
Hmm.
there's definitely some other spice in here. So anything sticking out to you right away you'd like to talk about?
Well, if you guys didn't catch our stream, on Monday, we were like actually streaming this match or this deck, and the one thing is that we really liked was the Perlitas with the Stitch combo. And that was something that we felt was like in a way underrated and like not that like I don't think I'm not saying that not that much people know about it, but I feel like not it was like a little underrated tech right there that
Mm-hmm.
that Keith had in his deck.
Yeah, obviously a lot of uninkables to deal with, but if you can get this to work, I mean, we saw it. You can go back and watch the stream. Like it was insane because I guess you can cheat to this Perdita a little bit quicker off of Pluto or Doc, but once that thing was set up, it felt like that those stitches were just controlling that board.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's like I'm counting them 13 uninkables. Yeah, 13 is that's a lot.
Definitely, definitely, and so yeah, that's a lot to deal with. And if you're good at managing it, obviously they only went with the kind of I'm assuming adding this in this Perdita Stitch package, they took a little bit out of this Tremaine Medusa package, so it kind of is a give and take with those uninkables.
For sure. And then it's interesting that he's only running one Madame Medusa. It seems like more and more people are growing uh, less Medusas and more Lady Tremaines.
Well, I think a lot more and more people are adapting to the Medusa. You know, they're I'm seeing less Beast Tragic. We didn't see it in Elias's deck for who got first there because people don't want to have those easy targets for the Medusas. So I think we are starting to see a shift in less Madame Medusa usage,
Yeah, for sure.
especially only questing for one compared to that Tremaine. I kind of forget how strong Tremaine is now that I'm seeing it more. I'm like, oh man, I have to kind of deal with that questing for two.
Yeah, for sure. And it's always good to play like a Tremaine after Be Prepared. I don't know. I don't think this deck might be running Be Prepared,
Uh,
but it's always good to,
Four teeth
yeah.
inhibitions is the whole interaction here with the songs.
Yeah, so for usually I like playing like a Lady Tremaine after it's like you be prep because usually your opponent always just drops like one character, or if they're smart, they'll play around the Tremaine, but usually they don't.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I really like Lady Tremaine for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I like those. The teeth inhibitions there paired really well with the Prince Eric. I think that's probably the reason why he's throwing that in there. Because it's just being able to deal damage and take something out at the same time. It's a tough card again, being another uninkable that you have to deal with. But when
Yeah,
it pays off well.
yeah, it's interesting. He has what 3, 6, 9, like 10 ways to remove something. So
Hmm.
I mean, it kind of makes sense. You don't need a B prep when most of your things remove stuff. So
Yeah,
pretty
it's
for sure.
very good point. I think one thing when I take a look at this list that I'm like, I almost would love to try in this list is he's already running the small Pluto. I'd love to see how the bigger shiftable Pluto would do in a list like this because I know some Mufasa decks have run it in the past. I know it's
For
easy
sure.
to get hit by a Madame Medusa, but when you're already committing to this package, it makes those Plutos a little bit better late game.
Yeah, I would think maybe he doesn't want to have like higher cost like characters
Mm-hmm.
because maybe he wants to keep hitting like the one and twos to bring back with the Perlitas or with
Mm-hmm.
the
Stitch.
Stitches. So that's my thinking, but he's also is running like the dragons, the Maui. So I don't know. Maybe he can include him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would
Take
just
out
be
the Stitch.
yeah, just definitely something to think about because I'm definitely going to be playing this list on the ladder. I'll tell you that much. I really loved watching this last night, And I think anyone who likes like a Mufasa style deck should definitely give this a try and see if you can pull off this Perdita Stitch tech because it's cool when it goes off.
Yeah, for sure.
So, any other comments on this list before we move on?
I think no, I think we're good. I think the we already talked about the Teeth and Ambition pairing up with the Prince, and
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, I mean you always need removal, and this guy has a lot.
For sure. So, congrats to Keith there coming in
Congrats.
and getting second place. So, let's move on to our third place. We've got James Gray. So, really cool to already see all three of these decks are different. In first, second, and third, different types, different colors. Like, this is very cool to see.
For sure. Yeah. It's interesting that red is the two that like it's the same color in the top three, but you
Mm-hmm.
know, pretty
But
cool.
let's look here for the starting with the songs. I feel like a lot of the Ruby Sapphire. This is kind of their song package. Some obviously. Oh, I'm thinking develop your brain, but that's probably down here in action. So
Yeah.
I was like, those are kind of the four or the three that I can always think of. So interesting that they went all in on the one jump ahead. But I guess when you're playing the Queen of Hearts and you have an option to sing it, it might pay off a little bit more.
Yeah. I don't know. I saw that and I was like kind of like 50-50 because
Mm-hmm.
like most of these a lot of decks, like a lot of blue red decks cut one jump ahead early on off the meta. But then I don't know, maybe now I think I did see Hannibal in the big tournament. He was running like a blue red deck that was also running one jump ahead. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe he's making a comeback.
Yeah, I love the card and I hate it. I mean, when I get it at the right time, it's amazing. But when you get it at the wrong time, it really really hurts.
Yeah, for sure.
So definitely a love hate relationship there with this card. So let's dump down here into the characters. And there's the one thing I want to pull up right away is the Three of Scar. I love this card, and I am super glad to see it at this many because it's a powerful card.
Yeah, when I was looking at the deck list, I noticed it was like a lot of rush characters.
Mm-hmm.
So you get like 11 rush characters out of what, like half your deck is rush, and like that's what I like kind of surprised me, but it's definitely interesting. I really like it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do know that the Ruby Sapphire decks do struggle a little bit against those aggro lists. So having those rush characters that come out and maybe can surprise your opponent a little bit definitely help with those matchups. So yeah, they went all in on it though.
Yeah, for sure. Especially with those scars, like against an aggro match, if you can get the scar, if you can ramp to the scar fast enough, the scar can basically just wipe everything out. And I think he's running popsicles. You can always just heal it with the popsicles and keep
Definitely.
wiping things out. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely, I really like the scar
Yeah,
in this deck.
it's yeah, like you said, the popsicle is an insane combo with it because just you can start swinging, 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 and it just feels like he just is nonstop. And then you can
Hmm.
usually finish him off into a location if that's his last attack you need to put into something.
For sure, yeah. I definitely like him. He's like a just a little more expensive, uninkable Maui, but he can do some damage.
Hmm. So I think the other character that maybe surprises me a little bit in here is the four cost Grammatala. I don't know what your opinions are on this card.
Yeah, that was interesting. I also was kind of surprised. We call her the mid Tala because she's the middle one.
Yeah.
And it's like I really liked her. But the deck that I was trying to run her in, it wasn't working. But it's a really good card. It's a 3/3 body, and it's like a develop your brain with the 3/3 body. It's like a cheaper, if you think about it, it's like a cheaper version of Gaston, and
Hmm.
it's just really good. You can't really go wrong with it.
Yeah, and I think if you do hit your curve right, I mean, you're going turn one, develop your brain or popsicle, turn two, jump ahead, and then you can skip straight to this Tala on turn three usually. So that definitely, if you can line those up right, I can see where it's really good.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. If you go turn three, like fishbone, and then you're gonna have four ink or you're gonna have five ink technically.
Hmm.
Yeah, but yeah, I can
Yeah,
see how it
just
works.
that one jump ahead, I think, is the best way to hit it. Because I know back in what it's set to, that was people would always turn one popsicle, turn two, jump ahead, and then have that turn three basically flavor sham to kind of refresh their
Oh
hand.
yeah, oh yeah, you can definitely ram fast with this then.
So let's go take a look at these items though, because that's obviously you pointed out the big way to ramp in this deck. So um, Obviously, all in on the Bone Quill, but they did include the one Heart Tafiti, which I love that
Yeah,
card.
for sure. I know you're not a big fan of the one-ups, so but
Hmm.
that was pretty interesting. I was like, I guess it makes sense if you just want to keep ramping, and then if it also just works as item removals with the flavor shams, so you can just keep drawing two more cards. So
Hmm.
I like it. And then if you really need, I don't know, if you want to keep inking, bring it back with the Tamatoa and then
Yeah,
continue. So yeah, I
yeah,
really like it.
yeah. So yeah, I definitely hate one ofs in this game, but in a deck where you can recycle it a little bit more, it makes a little more sense to me with that Tamatoa.
For
And then
sure.
I do like how this can kind of sit out there and be free ramp, not exactly free ramp, but like when you get to a certain ink, you're not killing cards out of your hand. You're just constantly adding to your ink pool. So this can be a really good tool late game to just make sure you have that crazy ink advantage over your opponent.
Yeah, for sure.
So a little expensive though to start with. That paying the two in a very early on turn three, not gonna happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, like you had mentioned earlier, if you go like one jump ahead and then you go with the fish bones, then by that time you're gonna have enough ink to like be able to use it too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely true. So cool to see that at least the one of though. I know some lists either they usually have a two or they don't include it. So I'd love to
Hmm.
see if they still choose to run with this after this event if they that felt that this did deserve the spot that they put it in, or if they cut this or add another one. So definitely interested to hear what they decide to do.
For sure. Hopefully they let us know in the comments. So
Yeah,
we'll see.
definitely. So anything else with the items here?
No, I mean the two lucky dimes are, I think that's pretty standard now in these like new blue decks.
Mm-hmm.
We see it like in this deck. Well, what other deck runs it? I think it's usually just blue red, right?
Blue
That
Steel
runs
runs it
this.
as well.
Oh yeah, blue steel runs it as well. But yeah, look, I think it's mostly been standard now
Mm-hmm.
with all these blue decks.
Definitely, especially when you're digging through Gaston, your Amatala, develop your brain, you've got ways to dig to that. So I can even
Yeah,
see that the one of, but I know some people want to make sure they do hit it.
for sure.
So, and then I don't think too much here. Obviously, they've cut down on a few mansions. It's not really at four like it used to, with kind of the location hate that's been being run lately. But I think the two is still a good number. You're going to see it when you need it, and locations are still good.
Yeah, for sure. One thing I noticed is that this deck has a little bit of everything: locations, actions, items, characters, songs. This is like one of the few decks that runs a little bit of everything.
Gives you lots of different options and kind of adjusts
Yeah,
to what you're playing up against. So
for sure.
overall, just congrats to James Gray. I'd love to see the, I guess, a different list making it first, second, third. So love to see if they can make it back up here to the top and if this list changed at all.
Yes, sir. Great deck, and good games.
So yep, let's go into fourth place, Bobby McDonald. And I know this is a different deck as well because I know he streamed a couple of these games.
Hmm.
So here we've got a Amethyst Steel deck, but it's not a Jafar list by any means.
Yeah, that's one of the things I noticed from when I was looking at this deck list was that they didn't have the Jafar, so it goes back to what we talked about last week about that mental game of like making them think you're running it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then another thing I noticed was only two snakes and three goats, which was like, whoa. I feel like you always want to go all in the bounces and all in on the goats, but that was one thing that kind of surprised me.
I do think that last week though the list that had run that was similar to this I think was on that same two snakes. I think they have just decided though that the Mim is the stronger of the two if they're going to cut anything, just having that rush or
For
the
sure.
fox.
Yeah,
So
makes sense.
three Yzmas is interesting. There's some more bounce there, and obviously it's crazy with this Merlin Rabbit, and we saw it in a couple different streamed games that Bobby was able to hit this off of here and draw a lot of cards.
Yeah, it looks like he wants to have more, definitely have more cards than his opponent because you have all the rabbits, you got Maleficents, you got the fairies,
Mm-hmm.
you got the Yzmas if you want to bounce your own stuff. He definitely wants to have more cards than his opponent.
Mm-hmm. And then one thing that's interesting is that they're at six Tinkerbells, but there's no shift at all for this Tinkerbell. It's you're either paying six for it or you're inking it. So definitely
Hmm.
an interesting choice. I see a lot of people sit this card at three, so I'm curious if they loved having all four of them or if that is something they would cut.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I'm looking down. He's also running three grab your swords, which is like if you go back to like the other ones, who mostly just been running two, but
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. He went all in with the 14 keys, and he went another extra grab your sword. So
And I guess that is their
maybe,
board wipe. The Tinkerbell grab your swords. They got to make sure they hit it because they're going to be having to wipe boards occasionally. Because I think this deck obviously is going to go a little bit later, and because it wants to outdraw the opponent, so you kind of drag the game out to where all of a sudden you've just constantly drawn cards the whole game, and your opponent hopefully has kind of dwindled out. As long as they're obviously not running a whole new world.
yeah, for sure.
Because I know we watched a couple of these matches, and it just felt like this deck choked every other deck out. Like they'd sit there, and for the first few turns, it'd be back and forth, and eventually this draw was just too much for the opponent.
Yeah, for sure. The draw engine in this is insane, and then like you mentioned, that definitely kept them in the game, which eventually got him. I think he
Mm-hmm.
made it to the last round.
Yeah, I believe they were playing in the finals against
Yeah.
the deck that eventually won it there, that Amber Steel. But obviously, that deck had Whole New World to kind of survive the choke out here.
Yeah, this was for sure like something like a Amber Steel, which we've been seeing a lot, or like just anything with the whole new world can definitely hurt this deck a lot, just because of the tree draw too much cards and then they just make you dump them. Yeah, that can definitely
Mm-hmm.
hurt
But I think most other lists, this deck probably does very, very well against.
for sure.
So let's go take a look down here at the songs, actions, and locations. So they went the 3-3-3 on the on the songs. So
Hmm.
just well rounded there. A lot of decks like the 4 of Unfriends, so they obviously decided that they only needed the 3, which is they have enough draw in here anyway, so it doesn't surprise me too much.
For sure. Yeah, it
Um,
makes sense.
all in on the castles, so that also I guess makes sense because that's the extra draw and just castles so good.
Yeah, that look just locations are can be really good in general against certain matchups, especially like steel. Again, just really like put pressure on your opponent.
And then I do want to bring up this fire the cannons because that is, I mean, it's such a great option. If your opponent goes first and they open with a Cinderella as an Amber Steel, this is your time to just pop it and kind of answer back to them when they're usually the one doing that to their opponent and destroying anything you play turn one. Why not destroy their turn one play? So
Hmm.
really strong card, and I like it at the 2 of. I'm sure they found it when they needed it or could mulligan down to find it.
Yeah, for sure. I really like the fire the cannons as well, especially like you mentioned against the Cinderella deck or anything that wants to shift. Maybe sometimes you even want to hit a thing like a morph,
Hmm.
or so just fire the cannons is super good.
Yeah, really, really great card. So I like this list a lot. This is another one that I'm definitely going to be trying out on the ladder because it's got to be frustrating to play against when you're drawing as many cards as this is drawing.
Yeah, especially if you get your opponent off guard. Like if you're expecting a whole new world to eventually come, it just never comes, and your
Hmm.
opponent keeps drawing. It's gonna get them off guard.
Those mind games of either having your opponent commit their hand or not, depending on what they think is going to happen, is it's insane.
For sure.
So anything else with this list before we move into fifth place?
No, I think it's pretty good. I really like the deck. One thing before we go, he is running all the beast. He did go all in on the beast,
Hmm.
which is we were mentioning that Meta Medusa was cutting the cutting off the beast, but now since people are cutting off the Medusas, it seems that the beast is making a return.
Yeah, so Bobby, if you end up watching this video, definitely leave a comment down below if you love this beast or if this is something you'd cut and kind of maybe your opinion on this if you do end up watching. So
Yes, sir,
very
for sure.
curious to
Let us
hear.
know. For sure.
So let's move on to fifth place. We've got our Team Mishi's own Bluesy here. So
Lose you again.
let's go.
But what is it? Did he get fifth place last week as well?
I think he got third last week.
Third? Oh yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Nice.
So congrats there to Bluesy. And let's take a look at this list that he ended up running. So I'll be honest, I'm pretty familiar with this one. I've been running this exact list pretty much on the ladder myself quite a bit, like on
So,
aggro bodyguard deck.
so you play. So since you've played it, what is your takes in it? Since you already have experience with it.
So it's definitely a very glass cannon deck because your whole goal is to empty your hand. Oh, so he took the Tiana's. Okay, so I was playing this list with Tiana's, so now that I'm looking at it again, he definitely did update it. So I added more draw then with he's got more of these beasts in here. I'm trying to think what else is different in here that he's got. Um, smashes. He added some smashes, so again more removal, but it's inkable removal. So I think my biggest opinion with this one is it wins pretty much almost automatically when you go first, but you kind of have to struggle against those games when you're going second, and your opponent can set up a little bit more against your early turn one Lilos or early Piglets.
For sure, yeah. It looks like it's really aggro at the beginning with the Lilos, with the Piglets, and then with the Blues. So yeah, it looks like it's super aggro at the beginning, and then kind of like finishing off the game with the Mufasas
Or
and some
Kita
of
to
the
keep the
other.
character safe.
Yeah, it's I've never played this deck, but it looks really interesting.
hmm one switch that I personally have made from a list like this is I've added in the one cost Kita as well, just so I have more shift targets for this Kita. So would love to hear Bluesy's thoughts on if the one cost is good or not, on what they would like to, or how they would change this as well after running the event.
You don't think like a Stitch would work here, like a Rockstar one, since if you're running out of draw, you can always just keep drawing with your little guys with like Robin Hood, Piglets, your Plutos. If you're running like the Kita one cost, like I feel like it would make sense to run like one or two Rockstar Stitch.
Yep, I think I agree with you. It's something to definitely test out because a lot of these bodyguards, when you play them, you're going to want to exert them anyway. So why don't you get the draw
Mhm.
for it?
For sure.
So drop Kita, get the exert on it. You could even probably throw Simba in here, the two costs as well, just if you're kind of leaning into that Stitch package.
Yeah, I think the Stitch maybe can work in this deck, but like I said, I've never played it. I don't know how this deck runs.
It's a fun one. It's very aggro. So if you like an aggro list, give this one a try. Yeah, you will definitely enjoy it with how quick this, because you can usually win by turn 4 or 5. It's pretty insane.
For sure, try it out. Add your own spice. You can add my suggestions if you guys like, but
hmm
for sure, give it a try.
Yeah, and definitely let us know. But then obviously have a couple songs here for the Cinderella to sing, and then like a grab your swords to kind of answer back to some other aggro decks that you might go up against. So something you almost
Mhm.
just kind of always have to have in your back pocket.
And you were also running just the one grab your swords.
I was as well. Yep.
Mm.
I find it when I need it. If I know I'm going against an aggro, sometimes I will try and dig a little deep, or if I see it in my opening hand, I'll usually try and find a way to shift on three into either Robin Hood or Kita,
Okay, for sure.
because then they don't usually expect the aggro deck to all of a sudden be swordsing you back. So
hmm
I don't think maybe I'd add that second one, but I haven't played just enough games with this, so I definitely need to get some more games in with this list.
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing I would definitely add would be another grab your swords, but it looks pretty good across the board.
hmm Definitely a fun list. So, congrats to Bluesy there on the back-to-back top cut finish as well. So, hope to see them continue to to represent Team Mishi well.
Yes, sir.
So let's go into the last list of the day. We've got Aaron Rubin, and
Another Amber Steel.
was
Was
it?
that two or three
This
Amber
is the
Steels?
second one. So first was Amber Steel, and sixth is. Though do believe this is the flute variant.
Yeah, but then Bluesy was also Amber Steel.
Oh, you're right. So there are really three different variants of Amber
Three.
Steel.
Talk about the mind games.
Yeah,
Mm.
if you're playing those, don't show the cards like the Robin Hoods that are being played in all three lists. Don't tell them what you're on, if you can definitely help it.
For sure. Yeah, definitely always play those mind games. They'll definitely put you apart from your other competition.
hmm So overall, the characters look very similar to what we saw in the list that got first. Obviously, no Chernobog in this, not being as lantern heavy, but any differences that you really want to pull out or really notice?
Mm, uh, Differences like compared to the first one is that he's going all in with the Rapunzels,
hmm
which is pretty interesting. I maybe would cut some Rapunzels. I understand you can heal your Robin Hood back and
hmm
maybe even your Cinderella, but there's not really many other characters that will survive
hmm
like an attack?
Yeah, and obviously they don't have the Tinkerbells in here as well. That's kind of the trade off that they
hmm
had. So yeah, the four of does seem a little. It seems like a lot, especially since you have a whole new world in here. But would love to know how the Rapunzel's played for them, because it does quest for the two. It does surprise some people when all of a sudden the Rapunzels can kind of squeak away games.
Yeah, for sure. Rapunzels are definitely good to like answer if you don't get that whole new world combo in time. You just keep drawing, draw yourself until you find that whole new world.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I said, it's pretty interesting that he's going all in with the Rapunzels.
Mm-hmm. Definitely more in with the Benjas, the three of that's the most I think Benjas we've seen running these
Hmm.
lists so far. A lot of them have kind of snuck into two. So as these items continue to be problems, more and more Benjas are going to start popping into these lists.
Those lucky dimes, those blue steels, blue red decks that are just finishing the games with those lucky dimes are a problem. So definitely makes sense to run more item removal.
Definitely. So let's take a look at the songs. Obviously, there's a whole wide variety we've got here, especially being on this flute variant. Obviously, you need to make sure you're hitting basically a song a turn to let the flutes do your questing for you.
Yeah. I noticed that he went three along cases. I don't know if that's the standard or
I think
was it only
three
two?
is three is pretty much a standard for a lot of that. I did see a lot of
Oh, okay.
decks run three long game Zeus.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. Yeah, especially if you're running, or if you're going all in with the flutes. I see he went kind of all in with the songs too. For Let the Storm Rage On, so our Strength of the Raging Fires.
Mm-hmm. And then obviously including the World's Greatest Criminal Mind. Just as someone who's been, I've also playing a little bit of these lists as well throughout the day, and this is that great answer to the opposing Cinderella if it comes down. Because if you're in the mirror match, that Cinderella comes down, and you don't have this in your deck, you're pretty much just saying GG right there.
Yeah, that I'm the more I'm thinking about it, the more I can see more targets for it, like the Scar that we saw, Tamatoa, the dragon. Like obviously you hate it when the dragon hits and then it removes one of your characters, but if you can just remove it with the song,
If you
then
have to remove Maui
that's
that way
always good.
too.
Yeah, I think the more I think about it, the more I see it being more and more playable. So I think I really like it.
Especially if you run the Queen package, just buffing up their characters and wiping them out like you had mentioned yourself. I know a couple different
Yeah, for
times.
sure. Yeah, yeah, that combo is always good. And I think I don't. What's your take on the four flutes? You like going all in with the flutes?
Yeah, I think I like the four of the flutes because there's no way to get them back if they get dumped on a whole new world. Because you just never know what your opening hand's going to be, especially if you're against the mirror match and you might lose some flutes. So
Hmm.
it definitely leads itself to some bricky hands, but also nothing feels better than having two or three on the field because you've been running into them and then a whole new worlding into a handful of spells.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Yeah, it makes sense.
I definitely like it. I could see if decks would, because I know a lot of the lantern decks are down to three, but I think the flute is, if you're going in on the flute, you kind of have to go all in, just gain that extra lore.
Yeah, because I don't know if it was 2 weeks ago, maybe last week. Uh, I saw a deck that only had two flutes in it. I'm like, that's interesting. He only has two flutes. So that's why I was like, I don't know if that was standard or the standard was all in the flutes.
I've always thought it all in, but I could be very wrong. So I'd love to see some more flute lists pop up
Yeah,
so I can get a little bit more of an opinion on that.
yeah. Let us know in the comments if it's all in or two flutes.
Definitely. So any other comments on this last deck list here?
No, I think pretty solid across the board. 4/4. You know, your two grab your swords. Pretty pretty solid. Pretty standard yellow amber steel deck.
Yeah, really fun list. So cool that, I mean, technically we had multiple Amber Steels, but we didn't have any duplicate lists at all. And then
Hmm.
I didn't look at all the decks and saw like how many Ruby Amethysts were played, but this was an event that Ruby Amethyst didn't even scratch the top six. So I don't know if that's just because a lot weren't run, but definitely interesting not to see him on top.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's interesting. Like so we mentioned last. I think I mentioned it last week that Amber Steel was good from the beginning of the set or from the beginning of the game, and now we're three sets in, and it's still the best deck in the game. So no, it's pretty interesting to see that.
Yeah, definitely. Stay tuned as this meta adapts, but expect Amber Steel to constantly be pretty good with some of those cards they've got.
Yeah, until they fix whole new world or fix that queen, we'll have to see.
You heard it here on the Mishi Monday events that the one cost queen needs to get banned. So
Yeah, yeah. Give us an also leave it in the comments if you guys would ban a card. What would it be and why? because we also want to know what would people ban and why.
Yep, definitely. So, thanks everybody for listening in here. We're here back every single Monday with our Mishi Mondays. We've been filling out the past few weeks, so if you do want to play, I'll have the event link in the description. So definitely pre-register, because we usually sell out tickets a couple hours, and I think it was 4 or 5 hours before this for this event. So there's a lot of people wanting to play. So if you want to play, definitely recommend you pre-registering.
Yeah, for sure. Next week, I think it's only going to be 32 people, but and maybe in 2 weeks from now, we're thinking about umping up the capacity so more people can play in it.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely stay tuned for that.
Yep, definitely stay tuned. So, thanks everyone for tuning in, and catch us on the next one. This has been Superior Synergy.
All right. Thank